greatest of this generation. They'll be calling me the girl who made poetry look cool, yo. Cool.
Kwalomuhle kubumbana insimbi yesithupha sikusele sikwamukele ehlelweni Kusile breakfast show. It is the 3rd of November, this beautiful Friday morning. Daba suku lolukhulu ke esiveni seMaswati njengoba kubhekekile ukuthi sibaya sichubeke elangeni laso ke lekugcina. Asathi ke ukuthi kutakwenda kani kodwa siyakuthemisa ukuthi litawuba khona nalolu hlelo lwaso sibaya litawubuka nje yonke imisebenzi letawuchubeka khona. Encenye ke singangeni kakhulu kuloko asibuke ihlelo lethu ukuthi sidabe sikuphetheleni lapha eGaza solo kunje kuchubeka info lebhlungu kakhulu leshacisa lugogo. Sibona timpi yachubeka following indaba ukuthi more than 21,000 are injured and more than 1.4 million people in Gaza have been displaced. Now the situation on the ground is indescribable. Hospitals are crammed with the injured. People are lying on the corridors. Morgues are overflowing. But Dokotela Betempilo performa ema-surgery without anesthesia. Thousands of people are seeking shelter for the bombardment. We will listen to a media briefing on the health situation in Gaza and Israel and other global health issues with Dr. Tedros on the first hour of the program at exactly 6:30. On the second hour, we will be joined by Patizo Msibi, our in-house sports journalist. Kubukanje temidlalo, particularly on the football front. Sitawubukanje ema-fixtures lapha ekhaya nemidlalo ke letawuba khona kule mpelasonto lesakuyo nokuthi ama-team eme kanjani encenye nemiphumela ngoba bekhonyana ama-game ladlaliwe in between the week to level up nama-game in hand bekasolo akhona kubomadlenya nalamanye ke emacembu lapha ekhathi bomba baneswalo. Siyafuna ke bese siya lapha eNingizimu Afrika nakhona sibuka i-Carling Cup, sibuka lamanye nje ama-games lakhona. Even in the English Premier League, we will look at a few results from the week as well as fixtures. But we also want to put a spectacle on i-Carabao Cup lesiyibonele nayo ichubeka kuleli viki lesikulo. Sidabe seke sephetha ngokubuka lapha eSpain, sibuke nje iLa Liga ukuthi basiphatheleni kule mpelasonto lesakuyo nokuthi ke ama-log standings akhona aseme kanjani. Ngesikhathanyalo kodwa ake sibuke ukuthi emaphephandabeni ye-Live and Deep ihloko lethamba embili. Siqale ngekubuka i-Times of Eswatini. Letgijima embili lomhla ekseni. Politicians still not paid. Some MPs say we are broke. They say that they were drained by campaigns. First paycheck is 27 days away. Kanzike Clerk to Parliament says some legislators are to blame for delay. I can imagine the mental stress they are going through. Kusho somnotfo. Kanzike kulenye lehamba embili. Wife divorces hubby for impregnating 5 maids. Wow, okay. Sibaya D-Day. Hope King will address Emanyeva. is another one. Kanzike Hulumende has ordered to pay Hunter 234,000 emalangeni. These are the leading headlines on the front page of the Times of Eswatini. Sibukete midlalo masinyane. Dynamites come in small packages as ex-Milling Stars 65,000 emalangeni is at South African team. Moves to SA as free agent after former club has been sold. Impressed, won 3-year deal within a week and has conceded 1 goal, targets DStv Premiership. The story really speaks to the aim is to play top flight football. Makamagela Olashiwang, former Milling Hotspurs goalkeeper Andile Dlamini. On another one, ESCA President Muntu Dlamini, Director of Sports Lucky Slongonyane, Eswatini Sports and Recreation Council's Nosmilo Dlamini with other ESCA board members and players Glabagnas Tombe Nasi on a headline that says it's 200,000 emalangeni for Pool Festival as Eswatini Q Sports Association has officially launched one of its big tournaments set to have 200,000 emalangeni prize money. Kanzike South Africa Sologunje Springboks hail South Africa's diversity. Sologe Nglabo Labenda parade after winning the World Cup. Asbuke Pepa Zabalelinye ku Tauba yi Eswatini Day Tauba Eswatini Observer, pardon me. Let's see, King plays his cards close. Nation waits with bated breath for Senate list. Vunankuluke welive kapteni wayo parliament. On another one, Eswatini Bank to the rescue. Enzabeni ke Eswatini Youth Empowerment Program. That's about injected 1.2 million emalangeni to sponsor this really great initiative by the United Nations. On another one, aunt hits out at deputy sheriff. Kanzike lenye lehamba embili, Hunter wins rape case. Yekcina Mr. Eswatini top 10 has been revealed. We are eager to see those top 10 faces. Mr. Eswatini. Temidlalo, shortage of stadiums costly to teams is the leading headline as PLE football manager Petros Vilagati articulates shortage of stadiums is costly to Emacembu. Siphinze sibona 50 emalangeni for Yellow Sunday at Mavuso with some of the fixtures for this upcoming weekend that we will speak on in further development with Parties MCB later on the program. These are the leading headlines. Eswatini Observer, Sbuge Eswatini Daily News this Friday morning. Eswatini Bank pumps in 1.2 million emalangeni for the Eswatini Youth Empowerment Program for the Eswatini Youth Empowerment Trainee Program. On another one, international tenders invited for E-Wade's Lucip 2 tender. Kanzike letiqhamuka ka-Escom tithi cyber security vital for business operation. Kusho CEO wayo i-Escom Babembila Wempi Dlamini. Sibuke temidlalo Eswatini Daily News this Friday morning. The leading headline there is Gilbert for African Football League final. He experienced local FIFA accredited match commissioner Gilbert Dlamini will make history when he officiates in the inaugural Super Rich CAF Africa Football League final, where Mamelodi Sundowns will face Morocco's Wydad Casablanca in the first leg on Monday in Pretoria's Lotus Versfeld. Kanzike kulenye 4 first division players suspended for this weekend's games. One coming from South Africa, Sundowns zoom into 74 million emalangeni AFL Grand Prize. These are the leading headlines this Friday morning. Maphephandaba bayilive siyafuna ke kubahlala emakethe sitabuya sibuke indzaba letihambe embili lapha ekhaya esukweni la Itolo nekusa kwalomuhla kungolesihlanu nje.
Umsakazo wetithombe iEswatini TV utibophelele kuhlonipha nekulandzela umgomo wetekusakata loweluswe libandla letekuchumana eVeni.
Ngephansi kwalomgomo sitimisele kusakata tindzaba letenteka ngaleso sikhatsi, tindzaba letide emagama lacosheme, letitsembekile, letitsintsa tonke tinhlangothi naletisebaleni.
Kusukela kutepolitiki, tetemphilo, tekulima, tetinkantolo netemhlaba wonke jikelele siniletsela tindzaba njengoba tinjalo ngaleso sikhatsi letenteka ngaso.
kanti kulo msakato siphinde sikulethele lonke luhlobo lwetemidlalo kusuka emidlalweni welibhola letinyawo kuye emidlalweni ledlalelwa ematafuleni kanye naleto letichamuka ngaphandle kwakuleli.
Leti tindzaba lowutiletselwa ngumsakato wetitfombe iEswatini TV.
Ngalomuhle siphindze sikwamukele ehlelweni imizuzu ke imfica kubumbene insimbi yesithupha kulesikhatsanyalo sitawubuka tindzaba talapha ekhaya. Litiko letemafa libambisene nahulumende welive le-Rwanda kwakhala uhlelo lwekutsenga impahla yahulumende ngetindlela tebuchwephesha. Kanti kuyakhuluma emahhovisini yenkampani lebutsa umthelo i-Eswatini Revenue Service lapho litiko belihlangene nalelibandla lase-Rwanda kutawushiyelana lwati mabhalane lomkhulu etiko letemafa sizakele edlamini uthi hlelo lutawudlala inzima lenkhulu kuthuthukisa umnotfo welive.
Mabhalane lomkhulu uthi bahlose ukuthi lolu hlelo luqinisekise kwekuthi kuthenga impahla yahulumende kuba sebaleni futhi kube bede inkhohlakalo. Uchubeke waveta ukuthi nyalo sebahlose kwekuthi kuthenga impahla yakhe ehulumende kusale kuba ngemalanga lang-57 kanti ngaphambilini bekuvamisa kuba ngemalanga lang-100.
Nasenda i-government procurement kutsenga kwahulumeni nale system nje financial management yonke yahulumeni siyathi kusicala kubudgeting iye kurelease imali ematikweni iye kuba procurement iye kuyobhadala kusebenzi iye kwenda ama capital projects yendlule ingene ka payment yendlule yende ne nabo inventory management nabo asset management nekulinka with partners ethu bo ERS konke so isitawuzama isiconzelo ukuthi ibe seamless.
Lohola libandla lelibuya even le-Rwanda uthi batawuqinisekisa ukuthi bamesekela ngalokuphelele ehulumende wakuleli.
Our nations have long recognized the significance of cooperation, and it is through such partnership that we can achieve remarkable progress. In Rwanda, we have personally witnessed the transformative power of such initiatives, such as the Integrated Financial Management Information System and the Electronic Government Procurement, the EGP.
Mabhalane lomkhulu uthi lizinga lenkhohlakalo lelive leSwatini nalicathaniswa nalamanye mave liku-33.3%. Ngako lolu hlelo lolu luhlose kuqinisekisa ukuthi iyaphela nya inkhohlakalo nakuthengwa impahla yahulumende. Etindzabeni teSwatini TV kubika Nelisiwe Ndlangamandla nginavuma inkosi inzinisa ezulwini.
Lehlenga lokusihlanu ekhulwini lizinga labomake nebantfwana labashona umamake abeleka. Lokho kuvetwe ngumabhalane lomkhulu etiko letempilo khanya babuza emhlanganweni wekwephetsa sigaba sesibili seluhlelo lolukhutsata kuphila kwabomake nebantfwana loluchutshwa ngekuhambisana ke nahulumende welive lase-Taiwan.
Lo hlelo lelatiwa ngele Maternal and Infant Care Improvement Project sigaba sesibili salo siqale ngeminyaka wa 2019 kanti kulomhlangano bekubukwa ukuthi live laseSwatini lisebenze njani kule minyaka lemine etindzabeni tekunciphisa bomake netinswane labashona umamake abeleka. Mabhalane lomkhulu etiko letempilo khanya mabuza uthi ngalolu hlelo live likhonile ukuthuthukisa tempilo kubomake labatetfwele noma sebabeleka.
Leli hlelo lisite kakhulu unokhanza ukuthi bomake bakhuphukile inombolo nga 10%. Bomake labaningi sebaya esibhedlela bayohlola eclinic. Nekuthi futhi labantwana labashonako bese singama neonates bafa sigaba sawo sekusehle kakhulu. Shothi nasibala nje kwesehle nga 5%. Khomsa kona ukuthi kukhona lesikwendako la. Lesingasi sikufunze kakhulu ukuthi umcwakisana nama communities ngoba nje besona nama communities nekwesibili ukuthi babathenga letinto tekuhlola.
Lisekela lalonxusele live le-Taiwan kuleli Chengling Tue uthi ngalolu hlelo bahlanyele imali letigidzi letimbili nengcenye temalangeni kutempilo.
The project has conducted numerous activities in cooperation with the Ministry of Health with a total investment of over 2.5 million US dollars.
Thwe uthi lamathuluzi abuke kuthuthukisa impilo kubomake labatetfele eveni nekunakekeleka kwabo uma sebabelekile. Kanti lo mhlangano wona utawuthatha emalanga lamabili. Etindzabeni Eswatini TV kubika Samkelisiwe Khoza ngasikhumbuzo Dlamini ezulwini.
Asike ngakulokunye emabhalane lomkhulu etiko letempilo khanya mabuza uthi nanoma live selifikile kubona 95 labathathu kusamele lilwele ekutheni kube bede i-HIV lapha eveni. Mabuza bekakhuluma emphakathini waseNkamazi nakuphakanyiswa lusuku lwe-World AIDS Day.
Sicubulo salolu suku sithi imimango ayihambe embili etindzabeni te-HIV. Akhuluma kulolu suku mabhalane lomkhulu etiko letempilo khanya mabuza uthi njengoba live libashayile bo-95 labathathu umhlaba-ke ulibukile live laseswatini ukuthi liyachubeka nekunqoba ligciwane le-HIV.
Khona imango ikakhulu lapho kuhlangana khona kubawa betikhulu la kuhlangana khona emasondweni la kuhlangana khona tikolo tinhlanga sitonkana delive tingummango silapha nje sibekwe ngibo lokuthi kungathi khona sikuzuze lesilive. Siphinde sibongele ukuthi futhi nasikhuluma sibantu bahlangene asikhuluma ngemango kuphela futhi sikhuluma ngenhlangothi yabantu ngekuhlukana kwabo.
Lo sabambe kuba ngumcondzisi wenhlangano yakaNechad Musani kunene uthi bathi bagubha lolu suku kubukwe ukuthi bachamukaphi bakuphi manje kusele iningi futhi kusaliwa nayo-ke i-AIDS.
Lala sesikhona khona sesifikele kulabo 95 lapho siya khona nyalo sefuna lokuthi wonke umuntu wafake naye isandla.
Umphakathi waseNkamazi-ke une-library lokungumtapo wetincwadzi losebenziswa abafunzi kudadisha nekwenta leminye imisebenzi yesikolwa. Kanti-ke lo mphakathi usemkhankasweni wekufaka i-Wi-Fi nabongcondvomshina. Lilunga lephalamende elutse nomkhosi Masuku liyabonga ukuthi umphakathi uvule tandla kude bantwana bafunze.
Nkosi yami bantwana Nkosi yami basitakele kakhulu ikakhulu ngana yindlu le-library.
Sikhulu saseNkamazi Chief Gija sithi live alibambane litayinqoba i-AIDS. Litiko letempilo-ke lithi wonke muntu eSwatini akafake isandla ekunqobeni i-HIV imimango idlala inzima lebonakalako kushaya ligoli leminyaka wanga-2030. Etindzabeni ngingiyani Msibi ngiseNkamazi.
Onke matiko ahulumende sakatawuba nemuntu lotawubuka tindzaba tebantfu labakhubatekile. Lokhu kwenteka ngemuva kwekuthi inhlangano yakamhlaba lebuke tindzaba tebantfu labakhubatekile yesekele hulumende kulolo hlangothi. Kanti umcondzisi weluhlangothi lwetenhlalakahle ovisini leliphini landvunankulu Mcusi Shongwe uthi lokhu kutawusita kwekuthi bantfu labakhubatekile basheshe balithole lusito lwahulumende.
Inhloso yalo mhlangano sikolo wala mhlawumbe ukubacijisa ngamakhono ukuthi basenda umsebenzi wabo batibuke tonke tinhlangothi letibuka ema-issues abantu labakhubatekile event. Esithombele lesinaso etindzabeni tekucashwa kwabantu abakhubatekile ukuthi vele emikhakheni leminyenti yemisebenzi basalela ngemva ngesizathu sekuthi bade labanye emakhono ekuthi bangasebenta kuleyo misebenzi leyo ledzinga emakhono lathile.
Lohola umsebenzi wekusita sivele esikhubatekile ka-United Nations Cindy Dube uthi besekele lo msebenzi ngoba babone ukuthi sivele esikhubatekile sesiningi lapha eveni.
Lokuhlanganisa labo plana nema-focal points in the different ministries eveni kukhandzakale ukuthi kumqoka as part of affirmative actions. Onke emave vele aka-UN member states baphocelelekile ukuthi kufanele abe khona ama-focal points so that kungabi ngathi ngibekise nje nge-DPM's office lewe disability.
Mengameli wenhlangano lesambulelo setinhlangano tebantfu labakhubatekile kuleli i-Federation of Eswatini People Living with Disabilities Bongani Makama uthi lesi sinyathelo lesihle lasithethe hulumende.
Kwi-exercise lenhle naletabalekele abantu abakhubatekile ikakhulu etindzabeni tekubuka yona i-budget ematikweni ngoba ihlala ingiyo leba insayeya ukhanza ukuthi kuletinwe lekumele abantu abakhubatekile batithole ukhanza ukuthi atisi well budgeted le matikweni.
Bantfu labakhubatekile kuleli benda 13% wesive semaswati. Etindzabeni teSwatini TV kubika Nelson Nhlanga amandla kunavuma inkosi inzinisa ezulwini.
Hulumende uthi uyatemukela tincomo tetinhlangothi letahlukene tekwekutsi kuhlukubeteka ngetebulili kusale kugagulwa njengesehlakalo kuleli njengoba sekukhula ngelizinga lelisetulu. Kanti-ke lokhulumela hulumende Alpheus Nxumalo ukuvete lokhu ngemuva kwekutsi inhlangano yengungu yemathemba i-Eswatini Action Group Against Abuse ibhalele lihhovisi landvunankhulu kanye neliphini landvunankhulu.
Letinhlangano letfaka ekhatsi Eswatini Action Group Against Abuse, Coordinating Assembly of Non-Governmental Organizations, kanye nekwakha indvodza kubala kuletinye titsi kugagula kuhlukubeteka ngetebulili njengesehlakalo kutawusita ekutseni tinhlangothi letahlukene lokufaka ekhatsi hulumende tikhone kulwa kangcono nako ngobe kutawufakwa netimali letanele. Letinhlangano titsa kusho ukuthi abayibona imetamo yahulumende netinhlangothi letahlukene kepha kuningi lefanele kwendiwe lokufaka ekhatsi kukhulisa timali temaphakelo lahlose kucedza kuhlukubetana kucinisekiswe ukuthi umgomo wekucedza kuhlukubetana wemnyaka wa 2023 kuya ku 2027 usebenta ngalokuphelele kubala kulokunye. Lokhulumela hulumende Alpheus Nxumalo uthi bayayithatha yonke imivo lechamuka inhlangothini letahlukene lephathelene nekucedza kuhlukubetana ngetebulili. Uthi hulumende utawukhulumisana nelihhovisi leliphini landvunankhulu kubuka ukuthi yini lenye lengendiwa kucedza kuhlukubetana kwalolonke lihlobo kuleli. Kuhlukubeteka lokuhlatimulisa umtimba lokwendeke kulamalanga nguloko kwekudutshulwa kubulawe bomake labane eGoje Township eZulwini. Etindzabeni teSwatini TV kubika Nelsiwe Ndlangamandla titfombe nguvumi Inkosi Nzinisa kanye nampendulo kumbi yembabane.
Lisekela lamabhalane lomkhulu etiko letindlu nekutfutfukiswa kwemadolobha Kusile Dlamini uthi emadolobha elive adzinga kutfutfuka abambe lizinga lemhlaba kute live litfutfuke liye embili. Kusile bekakhuluma ngesikhathi emadolobha elive ahlangene kamanzini kugubhala usuku lwakamhlaba lwemadolobha.
Lelilanga lakamhlaba lemadolobha lephetha inyanga yenyoni leyagagulwa njengenyanga yemadolobha nguye Mhlabhlangene kanti emadolobha elive ahlangane enkhabave elive kugubha lelanga. Lisekela lamabhalane lomkhulu etiko letindlu nekutfutfukiswa kwemadolobha Kusile Dlamini ukhulume ngebumcoka bemadolobha entfutfukweni yelive.
Silidolobha ngoba tinhlelo letitfolakala edolobheni kufanele batibhadale. Na uhlala edolobheni tinhlelo letifaka kusebentisa imigwaco, kupaka, kusebentisa ema-facilities la ngenema recreational centers edolobheni ke muva nje sekunetifo letikhona lidolobha afuna lihleleke libe nawo tindzawo la kutholakala imitholampilo. Lidolobha msakati futhi nalo kufuna libe nendlela yekwakha imali kuze lithuthuke.
Lobekamele lobuke lihhovisi lakamhlaba kuleli Afshin Phasi yena uthi ngentfutfuko emadolobha emava ngakhona kufeza ligoli lakamhlaba leli-11 lentfutfuko lekhonsako. Meya wedolobha lakamanzini Nozipho Gamedze uthi batibophelele kutfutfukisa emadolobha elive abalelwe nawo kulatfutfukile emhlabeni.
Etimveni letinjenga migwaqo yethu kuze kuthi ikhona ekuhambeka abantu basuke la basuka khona bete edolobheni bathole ukuthi konke kushaya umoya konke kuyahambeka kuyangeneka yonke indzawo but ikakhulu umbono wethu kuthi nathi nga-2030 sibese sifana nemavela athuthukile langembili lalengesheya.
Lolu suku beligujwa ngaphansi kwesicubulo lesithi intfutfuko emadolobha kuthuthuka kwempilo. Etindzabeni teSwatini TV kubika Samkeliswe Khoza nginasikhumbuzo Dlamini kamanzini.
Umcondzisi welibhange leSwatini Bank Nozizwe Mlela ucela tinkampani nemabhange kutsi tibacashe bantfu labasha lebaphuma emanyuvesi. Mlela bekakhuluma ngesikhatsi kunemsebenti wekwemukela bantfu labasha labasihlanu labaphuma emanyuvesi lehlukene labatawusebenta kuleli bhange iminyaka lemibili ngekusebentisana nenhlangano yaka-United Nations Development Program.
Ngenhloso yokunciphisa isibalo sekubade umsebenzi kubantu labasha, libhange leSwatini Bank ngokusebenzisana nenhlangano yaka-UNDP selemukele abantu labasha labasihlanu lebatawusebenta kuleli bhange iminyaka lemibili. Umcondzisi waleli bhange Nozizwe Mulela uthi ujika induku yebandla ushiya ingcabhayi-ke nakuletinye tinkampani ukuthi tibacashe bantu labasha lesebaphuma emakolishi nasemanyuvesi.
Asibafake abantu bethu nabo batongena emsebenzini batawufundzela kusebenza nabente kahle-ke vele seba-guaranteed ukuthi umsebenzi bangaba nawo Eswatini Bank. Lokho kuyindzaba lenkulu kithi sonke sibe osomabhizinisi belive bonke, lomncane lomkhulu, kwekuthi somabhizinisi amunye nje atfole phela kuthatha nje munye umbala amfake emsebentini.
Rose Sebatindira wenhlangano i-UNDP uthi lolu hlelo luthithelo tenkulumo yengwenyama yokuthi emabhizinisi akakhe emathuba emsebenzi kucashwe labangasebenzi.
That is a significant milestone
Uzilesigidzi nengxenye esemalangeni sitawuhamba libanga lelidze ekusiteni kulolu hlelo. Nonhlanhla Gama nguyena abongele labantu labasha.
Sijabulile kakhulu njengama-graduates ukuthi sithole lithuba leli kanjena, ikakhulu ngoba abaningi abantu labasha laveni labafisa ukuthola emathuba emsebenzi, kepha sibonga kuyena UNDP na Eswatini Bank ukuthi basinike lithuba lelihle nakanjena, naloko ukuthi sitalisebenzisa simelele nalabanye abantu labasha ukuthi singabavaleli iminyango.
Kunikwa lithuba kwalabantu labasha kutawusita ukuthi bathole lwati lokusebenta etinkampaneni. Etindzabeni namuhla kubika Giyani Msibi, nginaphathizwe Msibi eMbabane.
Umsolwa lo neminyaka lengama-23 uvele embi kwenkantolo yamanje yenhlangano abekwe licala lekulumeka umuntu ngemlilo.
Umsolwa lo ngomajahonge enhlabathi loneminyaka lengama-23 waseHosia uvele embi kwenkantolo yamanje yenhlangano abekwe licala lokuphambana nemtsetfo weSodov weminyaka wa-2018. Kuthiwa lo msolwa wathela nolwazi emkhatshwa ngemanti labamba lilangabi wase uyamulumeka ngemlilo. Ngaleyo ndlela wabeka kuphepha nekuphila kwakhe engotini. Ngekusho kwemaphepha senkantolo lo msolwa wenta lobucala mhla ka-29 ngenyanga yeNyoni kulomnyaka endzaweni yaseMathendele yenhlangano. Inkantolo ibe seyithi lo msolwa utawuve agcinwe ngumnyango locondzisa timilo netigwegwe, kantsi utawubuya enkantolo mhla ka-15 kule nyanga lesetulu utochubeka naleli cala. Lobika-ke tindzabeni te-Eswatini TV, nguthando kuhle Mdluli, ngisenhlangano.
Kanti-ke endzabeni temidlalo, inhlangano yemidlalo we-Q Sports kuleli seyisukumise indzebe letawatiwa ngekuthi yi-Eswatini Pool Festival letodlalwa eminyakeni lotako. Muntu Dlamini longumengameli walenhlangano uthi kudlalisa lemidlalo kutawubasita kukhomba ukuthi bangakhona kubamba imidlalo lemikhulu yesifundza phindze kukhulise nawo lo mdlalo. Lendzebe isukunyiswe ngalokusemthethweni emahhovisini elitiko letemidlalo eMbabane.
Inhlangano yemidlalo we-Q Sports isukumiseke indzebe letohamba nemali lengu-200,000 emalangeni letawatiwa ngele Eswatini Q Sports Festival letodlalelwa abadlali labasuka ngaphandle kwakuleli kufaka ekhatsi labo labasuka esifundzeni leSanders ne-Afrika. Akhuluma-ke kulo mcimbi mengameli walenhlangano ye-Q Sports Muntu Dlamini uthi lendzebe inhloso yayo ukuthuthukisa lo mdlalo kuto tonke tinhlangothi.
Njenga-Q Sport imandate yethu developer the sport se-Q Sport Eswatini siphinde siyipromote kuwo onke ama-levels. Le initiative le is meant to promote le blackboard.
Kanti lobekamele letiko letemidlalo kube ngilakhe isihlongonyane lobongele kakhulu lenhlangano ngekusukumisa lona mdlalo.
Kungaleso sizathu ke sitawuthanda kubonga kakhulu nange ma-sponsorships lavele aphumele ebaleni wona athi laba baka Q Sports batawukhona ukuthi bababambise kulo msebenzi longaka, ngoba mase ulandze abantu bangaphandle usuke ungasathi landzelanga wena kuphela but nje usuke sebetevela.
Kanti inhlangano lengamele letinhlangano tetemidlalo kule ekhulumele ngicubile Dlamini ithi
Q Sport through this tournament utokhona ku-implementa sports development because ukuze athuthuke ema-sports funeka ucale kulokudlalisana sisesela Eswatini sidlale sibone kuze kuthi nasiphumela ngephandle sesiya ngephandle sibantu laba ready for podium.
Lo mdlalo utodlala eminyakeni lotako kusuka nathi isithupha enyangeni yaBhembethwana. Lobekela umsakazo weSwatini TV kutemidlalo ngiphathizwe Msibi eMbabane.
Umqeqeshi welicembu lembabane Swallows Caleb Ngwenya uthi kuba nebadlali labaningi labadlala ekhethelweni lesive kutawuba nemthelela lomuhle kuleli cembu njengoba labadlali batotfola lwati lolungabasita nababuya ecembini. Ngwenya bekakhuluma ngemuva kwemidlalo noma-ke kwemidlalo wabo nelicembu lemadlenya lophele ngelicandza ecandzeni ngaphansi kwe-MTN Premier League kalanga esiteki.
Licembu lembabane Swallows linebadlali abalishumi lababitiwe ukuthi bamelele lifa emidlalweni ekuhlungela emavila yongenela indzebe yemhlaba eminyaka wa-2026. Labadlali bafaka ekhathi Sizwe Lethu Shabalala, kwaKhethwala, Newman Philiso, Ayanda Gadlela kanye naNeliso Dlamini. Lokho kuyamjabulisa umqeqeshi waleli cembu Caleb Ngwenya. Uthi lokho labakutholako kule midlalo kutoba-ke nemithelela lemihle nasebabuyela badodlelelana neli cembu.
We are quite very happy this time around that we've added a quite number of players to the national team. It means the selectors of the national team saw something, and it's very good for the team because when they play those high quality games, the national they will come back with relevant experience, and that is what we want.
Licembu lemadlenya ngilo-ke lelicale kahle indzebe lensha lapho ngemva kwemidlalo lesithupha alikase lakhala phansi nakumunye umdlalo. Noma kunjalo, kude kumdlalo walo lobitiwe kulo lelikhethelo lesive. Umqeqeshi waleli cembu William Gamete uthi lokho akukabafake-ke manje ematholweni bafana bakhe.
No, good disappointment. Ngicabanga ukuthi lesi happy njengako lesicabanga nathi ukuthi kube fair ukuthi sikhona ukuthola i-player of the month last month. Yaphuma kithi vele bese i-team le-performa kahle. Asadi-ke for this month ukuthi kutawendekani but still i-record lethu lihle asinayo ilusi. Sebatawubona labafanele kubona ukuthi babona baphika kuphi nakuphi.
Lamacembu adlale-ke umdlalo wawo wesithupha lophele ngelicandza ecandzini lapho betholene khona enkhundleni temidlalo kalanga. Lobekela umsakazo we-Eswatini TV temidlalo ngiphathiswe Msibi kalanga esiteki.
Ngosi sitawubuka simo selitulu sibahlo letimakethe sitawubuya sichubeka nelihlelo.
Eswatini Lifestyle is all about inspiration, drive, and swag. Eswatini Lifestyle is informative and fun while covering all aspects of life, be it people, places, and trends in the kingdom of Eswatini. We got you covered. The focus is on the quality of life. Eswatini Lifestyle will spark your interest. Catch Eswatini Lifestyle every Friday at 7:30 p.m. on Eswatini TV, Sibugo Semaswati.
What do you think the best part of traveling is? Is it the food, or is it the conversation, or is it the sights and sound? If you're ready to explore, we are ready to show you the best way how. We'll give you access to the best luxury getaway sites in the kingdom of Eswatini, and of course show you vacation sites that suit your budget, because you do not need a lot of money to actually have a great time. Join us on the next adventure on Buhle Bethu, only on Eswatini TV.
Let me tell you about my crush. Ngenzane inhliziyo yami embi kwakho njengekudala.
Ngondlo yesiswati.
It is 3 in the afternoon. We are back in the living.
For men are so kind towards creation more than they even were to their own creator.
I am the greatest of this generation. They'll be calling me the girl who made poetry look cool, yo. Cool.
All right, it's 34 minutes after 6. More than 21,000 are injured and more than 1.4 million people in Gaza have been displaced. That is, bantfu labangetulu kwetinkhulungwane letingemashumi lamabili nakunye balimele. Kanti-ke millions and millions have been displaced. Indzaba lebuhlungu kakhulu leshacisa lugogo indzaba ke lena lechubekako eGaza. The situation on the ground is indescribable according to Dr. Tedros of the World Health Organization. Kuthiwa ke tibhedlela nema-clinic nema-pharmacy, they are all crammed with injured people. Sekude lapho khona bangathola khona lusito lwetemphilo. Labanye babo sebalele kuma-corridors. Kubakala kutsi nalapho kugcinwa khona bantfu lasebashile emhlabeni kugcwele. Morgues are overflowing. So bodokotela, they are performing surgery without anesthesia. Just to show how bad the situation is at Gaza. Thousands of people are seeking shelter from the bombardment. Bantfu ke labathi inkhulungwane netinkhulungwane bede nalabangalala khona kude luphahla ngoba noma ngabafuna kuyawulala emadolobheni bakhanza ukuthi lawo ma-buildings lawo nanawo sekawisiwe abombiwe. It's just no place really to hide. Sitawulalela a media briefing on the health situation khona eGaza and Israel. Siphindze nje sive naletinye tincomo letiphakanyiswa ngibo baka World Health Organizations regarding global health issues with yena Dr. Tedros. Sifuna kukulalela konke lokho lesikhathi sanyalo.
Functionality is affected by lack of food and clean water and the lack of fuel to power generators. As health needs soar, our ability to meet those needs is plummeting. 23 hospitals have been ordered to evacuate in Gaza City and North Gaza. And forced evacuation in these circumstances would put the lives of hundreds of patients in a life-threatening situation. Moving a baby on life support would be hazardous in a high-income country. Doing so in Gaza would gravely endanger a child whose life has only just begun and who knows nothing of this conflict, nor is responsible for it. Demanding these patients move puts them and the health workers in an impossible situation. And in most cases, they have nowhere to go. I send my appreciation to health workers in both Gaza and Israel who are dealing with the consequences of this conflict. The best way to support those health workers and the people they serve is to strengthen the existing health system by resupplying the hospitals and ensuring their security. In the past 2 weeks, WHO has been able to deliver 54 metric tons of humanitarian supplies to Gaza. But this does not even begin to address the scale of need. Far more is needed than can be delivered with a drip feed of aid. Before the 7th of October, an average of 500 trucks a day were crossing into Gaza with essential supplies. Since the 7th of October, only 217 trucks have entered in total. To sustain the humanitarian response on the scale needed, we need hundreds of trucks to enter Gaza every day. We thank Egypt for opening the Rafah border crossing to allow the evacuation of severely injured patients and foreign nationals. It's too late to help the dead now, but we can help the living. We can help those who live every moment in fear. We can help injured civilians. We can help the almost 200 women who are expected to deliver babies every day. We can help children and older people. We can help those with life-threatening diseases who need urgent medical care. WHO will do everything we can to ensure that all people in Gaza have access to life-saving health and humanitarian services. In the current situation, this is almost impossible. At the very least, we need a humanitarian pause in the fighting, and ideally, a ceasefire. We need unfettered access and safe passage agreed by both parties to ensure the security of access routes. Let me be clear. There can be no justification for Hamas's horrific attacks on Israel. I understand the grief, the anger, and the fear of the Israeli people. I also understand the grief, the anger, and the fear of the Palestinian people. WHO continues to call on Hamas to release the hostages it took, many of whom need urgent medical attention. We continue to call on Israel to restore supplies of electricity, water, and fuel. We continue to call on both sides to abide by their obligations under international humanitarian law. And we call on who can de-escalate this conflict rather than inflame it. With the world's attention is focused on Gaza and Israel, we're continuing to remind the world that we cannot forget Sudan. Since the conflict erupted in April, almost 6 million people have been displaced, including 4.6 million within Sudan. Combined with the more than 3 million people who were already displaced before the war, Sudan now has one of the largest numbers of internally displaced persons in the world. The already fragile health system is buckling under the load of injuries, outbreaks, malnutrition, and untreated cases of diabetes, cancer, and cardiovascular, kidney, and respiratory diseases. In addition to measles, rubella, malaria, and dengue, outbreaks of cholera have been declared in 3 states. WHO is preparing to support cholera vaccination campaigns. More than 70% of health facilities in conflict hotspots are non-functional in conflict hotspots and in areas not directly affected by the conflict. Health facilities are overwhelmed with patients. Critical services have been discontinued in many areas, including for maternal and child care, severe acute malnutrition, and treatment of non-communicable diseases. Meanwhile, the health system itself continues to be attacked. So far, WHO has verified 60 attacks on healthcare since the start of the conflict, including the occupation of a pediatric center in Niala in South Darfur last week. We're pleased that the hospital staff have been released unharmed, but the pediatric center was looted and has had to suspend its operations. I thank all health workers in Sudan, most of whom have not been paid in 6 months, but continue to serve in the most difficult context. While talks between the parties to the conflict have resumed in Saudi Arabia, there is no sign of improvement on the ground. We call on the parties to implement the commitments they made in May this year. The late Kofi Annan said that suffering anywhere concerns people everywhere. The suffering of civilians in the occupied Palestinian territory, Israel and Sudan, and in so many other crises must concern all of us. WHO is doing everything it can to alleviate suffering in all of these places. But in each case, The ultimate solution is one thing we can't provide: peace.
The question is about Gaza. It's slightly two-part. The first is, do you have any estimate for how many people have died in Gaza outside the bombings from the casualties from bombing? And is there any kind of count of that from the authorities or from WHO? And also, who's the most vulnerable? And then the other question is WHO working with Israel to set up a field hospital in Gaza?
I didn't get the second part of the question. I think the second part was on field hospitals. Is that correct? Okay, then I'm right. Let me first go to the total number, and I think Dr. Tedros referred already to this staggering number, and unfortunately, we got reports. I mean, the reports unfortunately has been increased. We talk now about 8,805 deaths, of which more than half are women and children, and the injuries over 22,250, including and also for the injuries over half women and children. And displacement was already mentioned of 1.4 million of the 2.1 million Gazans. You asked about field hospitals, and maybe we are definitely, we are currently not working on field hospitals, but maybe if I'm allowed, I could say something about the WHO plans and the WHO operational response plan for the next 3 months. So we are finalizing an operational response plan with an estimated budget of 50 million for the next 3 months. And the focus is first and foremost on supporting existing health facilities. So strengthen and maintain services and reinstitute a trauma pathway. We should realize the health system in Gaza is incredibly resilient, on a breaking point, but resilient. Within this plan, we will focus, of course, on health service delivery, the management of casualties, the re-establishing of a trauma pathway from the point of injury, and also maintaining the continuity of essential health services and the re-establishment of referral pathway, primary, secondary, and tertiary levels. We focus on public health intelligence, early warning, disease prevention and control, supplies and logistics, and coordination. This is the core of the WHO operational plan. Then, to supplement that, we will focus on a number of emergency medical teams from outside Gaza to work with those key referral hospitals on certain areas where it's most needed. We also will plan for 2 to 3 additional field hospitals, and ideally 1 in the north and 2 in the south. I want to make a very important point, and people maybe don't realize that. There are approximately 20,000 health workers in Gaza. 20,000 health workers operational in Gaza. There are 7,084 physicians, of which 529 surgeons. There are more than 11,600 nurses, almost 4,000 pharmacists, and 607 midwives. There's lab technicians, etc., etc. There was, for this war, a functioning health system. There are still, from the 36 hospitals, there's 22 hospitals operational, partly operational, I would say. And I think Dr. Tedros, Dr. Tedros already described all the shortages, which are, of course, affecting these current hospitals. There's also, when I look at the primary healthcare facilities, currently 26 of the 74 primary healthcare facilities are still partly functioning. Point I want to make, we will have to focus. We are now in an, I would say, an ultra-emergency phase. And WHO is doing a lot to address that. I will not focus on that now. But in this humanitarian response, and when you look at health and the health system, we have to focus in supporting and making sure that the existing health systems the existing health systems will be able to deliver. It will be really a bit delusional if you think that with a few EMTs from outside or setting up a few hospitals that we can supply appropriate or even a minimum level of health services for 2.2 million Gazans. For that, and to have, of course, this plan to make sure it's operational, we need ideally a humanitarian ceasefire, but we definitely need safe passages, humanitarian corridors, and a sustained access to the needed supplies.
I just want to reinforce the point that Rick made. The best and most effective and most rapid way to save lives is to support the existing system. Rick laid out the numbers to you there. The doctors, the nurses, the pharmacists, the technicians, the porters and everybody else within that system have done remarkable work over the last 3 weeks. They have saved countless lives. They want to continue doing that. The facilities are there, machinery is there, the beds are there, the operating theatres are there. It is the responsibility of all parties to the conflict to allow those hospitals to be resupplied. The international law is clear on this. It's not just about not attacking facilities, it's about protecting facilities, and occupying authorities have a special responsibility to ensure that such facilities are not only protected, but serviced and supplied with the adequate needs for the populations that they serve. The issue of EMTs coming in field hospitals, the best and most effective way to introduce an EMT or a field hospital is to bring it in an association with an existing facility where it adds to the number of beds, it adds specialist capability, it allows exhausted surgeons and others to rest while others take on the role. Putting field hospitals far away from population centres, unsupported by the local infrastructure, is not the best way. It takes a long time. And secondly, right now, we have no deconfliction effectively operating. There is no humanitarian access, and anyone out there that says we've got humanitarian access, it is not true. Our supplies are being delivered in a way that I haven't seen in the past. It has been almost impossible to set up appropriate notification, acknowledgement and deconfliction measures in this particular conflict. So getting trucks over the border is one thing. Getting them to the places in which they are needed is another, and that has not been facilitated, that has not been supported. In fact, if anything, quite the opposite. So there is a huge gap between the rhetoric of some and the actual reality for our health workers on the ground and our staff on the ground. That needs to change, because quite frankly, I'm sick of hearing all of these reassurances that don't actually exist on the ground for the people we work with. Our staff are operating under duress at the risk of their lives to help ordinary civilians working in and bringing supplies to hospitals. How are we going to bring in field hospitals with further international workers whom we can't even guarantee the basic safety of the staff we have on the ground now? This is unconscionable. This is unthinkable. And I've operated in many, many, many different crises in my time, many different situations. And we have never found it as difficult to establish the basic rules of engagement that would allow us to act in a proper humanitarian fashion with minimum guarantees of safety to our staff and to our partners. So the rules of this have got to change. If the international community want WHO and others to bring international staff at international field hospitals into Gaza, they must be able to guarantee their safety, and the occupying power must do likewise. There is no other way to do this. But as Rick said, the best way to do this is to support the existing system. But we will not be instrumentalized in this. We will not become a party to this. We are doctors, we are nurses, we are pharmacists, we are lab technicians, we are porters, we are drivers. Our job is to save lives. That is our only job.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. I wanted to know if you have the numbers for how many injured have been able to cross into Egypt, and possibly also if you could try to set out how health workers decide who is transported, and how you sort of triage those patients. It's obviously an impossible decision, and I wondered if there's any the WHO has any sort of guidance on that. Thank you.
There has been a discussion on the most needed for in terms of trauma and medical evacuation for people who need surgery, the burns, the orthopedic, and at the same time people who are critical in terms of cardiac problems or thoracic injuries. This is one. Regarding the safe access, I would like to echo what Dr. Ryan said and also Director General. The movement of the patients has not been easy yesterday. We have the total number 46 that arrived. The hospitals, they were distributed between two main hospitals in North Sinai. And at the same time, we know that they have been accompanied by 36 family members. Some of them have been only by one or a couple of two. The decision on who should be coming in and at the same time has been a consensus between several parties, as we understand, especially between the Ministry of Health in Palestinian territory and Ministry of Health in Egypt. This is the latest that we have. One of the critical aspects that there has been so many, more like 365 international, some people call dual, some of them are international, that yesterday have arrived and they have been safely checked at the border and passed. 35 children who were given their immunization at the border polio because of the fear. This is just quickly to answer this question. However, the concern is the movement has not been as easy, and already Dr. Mike Ryan said, is not as easy as we think. You just open the door and the movement has happened. It started from 11 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night, and it was trickling. And at the same time, very slow, as I understand. Now that I'm talking with you, I have one of the WHO colleagues from country office at the border since 11 o'clock in the morning. And he said only 3 UN Italian passed, and they were taken by their embassies and left. No patient yet. Ministry was expecting patients since morning to come through. And this shows the complexity allowing safe passage, humanitarian access, more importantly, ceasefire. There is a fear of movement by the patients, by their families. Very well put by Dr. Tedros and by Dr. Mike Ryan. If the children and critical care patients are on machineries to keep them alive, with this movement, they are being put at risk.
I just want to add a note of thanks, and Dr. Tedros mentioned this, but particularly to the Ministry of Health in Egypt and to His Excellency the Minister of Health, Dr. Khalid Abdul Ghaffar, because the work that's been done in Egypt over the last number of weeks in terms of medical evacuation preparedness has been truly state-of-the-art. While I was in Al Arish with Dr. Safan, the head of the hospital's directorate, we were able to, with Naima, who's just spoken so wonderfully, we were able to visit the Al Arish Hospital. We were able to visit the ambulance teams. There are 65 ambulances on standby with full resuscitation capability. There are 13 emergency physicians assigned to those ambulances for the most difficult cases. Al Arish Hospital has full resuscitation capability, 30 ICU beds, 6 pediatric intensive care beds, and also has Egypt has brought a number of specialist surgical teams in to work in that hospital, including burns, thoracic surgery, reconstructive surgery, plastic surgery, etc. There is a very intricate and well-worked secondary layer of hospitals that have been identified to take patients on further referral, and the Ministry of Health have also built a stabilisation and triage unit at the Rafah border. All the preparations are there on site. On the Egyptian side, it is in place. It is highly professional, but as Nima has outlined, the problem is getting safe passage for very scared patients and others in moving towards that border. Again, reflecting the terrible complexity of the situation on the ground in Gaza.
I guess my question is around a report that the Foundation for Defense of Democracies put out, and they said that there's concern that Al-Shifa Hospital, which is the largest in Gaza, is, according to credible reports, a Hamas base of military operations. And I was just wondering on the WHO's perspective around potentially disentangling the critical need for care in these hospitals and the potential complications of them being used as a base for military operations. And secondly, if there's time, I'm wondering about what sort of support's being offered for the mental health side of things in Gaza? Thank you.
Yes, the The reality on the ground at Al Shifa and other hospitals is that we have thousands of health workers, thousands of patients, probably hundreds of thousands of civilians sheltering at these multiple facilities, particularly all over, but in the north now where they're effectively cut off from any assistance. The rules are clear on this. Healthcare must be protected. We have no information. I know what's going on above the ground. We know what's going on above the ground. We deal with the doctors, the nurses, and the administrators at that hospital and all of those hospitals. And they're crammed full of patients, ongoing operations, intensive care, and much, much else. And in that context, we have no information on what may be happening elsewhere or underneath these facilities. That's not information we would have. It's not information we could verify. The misuse of facilities, and Dr. Tedros just outlined an example from Sudan, where the misuse of facilities for military purposes is equally outlawed under international law. The difficulty here is separating the needs of 50,000 people, for example, at Al Shifa Hospital, civilians, doctors, patients, and others. We have no independent verification whatsoever of any of the information that you refer to. And in this situation where such an eventuality occurs, again, it is the responsibility of the occupying power to not only agree with the local health authorities on an evacuation, but then if that does happen, that has to be fully facilitated, fully supported logistically, and those patients, those doctors need to have a place of safety to go where the patients can receive an adequate and similar amount of care. None of those criteria are met. Those patients cannot be moved. Those doctors and nurses will not leave their patients. And all we know is that that is the situation above the ground in those facilities, and particularly at Al Shifa. We have no knowledge of anything else to which you speak, and no evidence, likewise, that assertion is true. There's lots of misinformation and disinformation in war. We're all subject to it. We're all victims of it. All we know is that we are supporting the thousands and thousands of patients, civilians, and health workers who continue to try and deliver life-saving health care in hospital facilities all over Gaza.
I want to stress, first of all, mental health, psychosocial support is possibly, and specifically in occupied Palestinian territory, is one of the biggest needs, and specifically when you look at Gaza, but also apply for the West Bank, East Jerusalem, etc. The many escalations, crises, wars they've gone through, the needs is always been tremendous, and currently the mental, there is what I know, there's actually one specific hospital for mental health patients which is still partly functional, but that's just a very small part of that. WHO, in the past, we always have been supporting the whole area of mental health and psychosocial support, and to strengthen mental health and psychosocial support in primary healthcare and creating.
Well, yeah, that's the health situation and the situation that's currently going on in Gaza. The general sentiment is that the situation is precarious and that a lot of aid is needed there. I'm hearing a lot of concern around the fact that people are promising that they will extend hands, but quite frankly, that is not really the situation. That doesn't really materialize, and they are pleading for humanitarian aid and assistance to help the many people that are going through it out there in Gaza, the many lives that people keep losing. It is indeed gutting, and we hope that the situation will end really soon. Let's go for an ad break and look at our English news in a bit.
We at Eswatini Television Authority are committed to observing the Eswatini Communication Commission's Broadcasting Code of Conduct.
Under the code, we are committed to broadcast news that is current, free from hate speech, accurate, balanced, and fair.
From politics to business, health, agriculture, courts, and global news, we bring you the latest updates as they happen, when they happen.
We cover all the sporting codes from the football pitch to the chessboards.
This is Eswatini TV News.
All right, 5 minutes after 7, let's take a look at our English news. The Ministry of Finance is being supported by the Rwanda Cooperation Initiative under the government of Rwanda on public finance reforms, which include the public finance management, e-governance, and e-procurement. Speaking at an information sharing session at the Eswatini Revenue Service at Ezulwini, the Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, Sizakele Dlamini, says these reforms will play a pivotal role in uplifting the country's economy.
The benefits of the implementation of the electronic procurement system will increase transparency, accountability, and competition in public procurement. Just as an example, we are targeting to reduce the procurement lead time from 100 days to 57 days. We all know that people are complaining government processes take too long, red tape, all that, but we are hoping and we are confident that we will reduce the lead time. And again, we intend to achieve greater transparency as the tender documents and disclosure of contracts will now have to be disclosed publicly.
The head of the Rwanda Cooperation Initiative, Rosine, says they are ready to offer their full support to Eswatini.
Our nations have long recognized the significance of cooperation, and it is through such partnership that we can achieve remarkable progress. In Rwanda, we have personally witnessed the transformative power of such initiatives, such as the Integrated Financial Management Information System and the Electronic Government Procurement, the EGP.
According to Transparency International 2022, Eswatini stands at 33.3% against a global average of 48.4% on corruption. Such programs by government seek to address this anomaly. For Eswatini TV News, Nelson Ngamandla, Vuminkosi Nzinisa, Ezulwini.
The Ministry of Health Principal Secretary Kanya Mabuza says the country has reduced child mortality rate over the past 4 years. Mabuza was speaking during a forum on strengthening maternal and child health care, which was hosted in partnership with the government of the Republic of China on Taiwan.
The Maternal and Infant Healthcare Improvement Forum on Strengthening Maternal and Child Healthcare is aimed at increasing the accessibility of maternal and infant healthcare services across the nation. The Minister of Health, PS Kanya Mabuza, officially opened the conference.
The project has worked towards improving two critical outcomes, namely increasing the number of pregnant mothers who attend the 4 antenatal care visits by 5%, decreasing early neonatal mortality rate by 10%, and supported these health facilities in many, many ways. It is a great, great milestone for this country.
Minister of the Embassy of the Republic of China on Taiwan, Cheng Ling Cui, said over the past few years, numerous activities were conducted.
Over the past 7 years, the project has conducted numerous activities in cooperation with the Ministry of Health, with a total investment of over $2.5 million in medical equipment. The project has benefited more than 20,000 pregnant women, resulting in a similar number of newborns each year.
The meeting will also discuss the achievements of the second phase of the maternal and infant healthcare improvement project. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I'm Samkal Suekoza with Zikumbuzo Dlamini Ezulwini.
The Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Health, Kanya Mabuza, says even though Eswatini has achieved the 95-95-95 target, Eswatini still has to do more in eliminating HIV. Mabuza was speaking at Nkamazi chiefdom in the Manzini region during the launch of the World AIDS Day.
The World AIDS Day was launched under the theme Let Communities Lead. Speaking during the launch, the Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Health, Kanya Mabuza, says the world has set its eyes on Eswatini since Eswatini was the first to achieve the 95-95-95 target.
Silapha nje sibekwe ngibo lokuthi kungathi khona sikuzuzile silive. Siphinde sibongele ukuthi futhi nathi khona sibantu bahlangene asikhuluma ngembango kuphela sho sikhuluma ngenhlangothi yabantu ngehlukana kwabo.
He says communities can be churches or any group of people who have the challenge to work hard, and the Maswati must work in unity on HIV issues. The acting director of Nature, Dumsane Gunene, says the country must look at how far it has come on HIV, where it is now, and what is left in the fight against HIV.
Lala sesikhona khona sesifikele kulabo 95-95-95 lapho siya khona nyalo sefuna lokuthi wonke umuntu wafake naye isandla.
He says people must encourage one another and all work together in preventing new infections. The Nkamazi Umphakathi has a library which is utilized by all learners in the area to study, research and do their schoolwork. The Lutse Member of Parliament Nomkhosi Masuku applauds the chiefdom for the library.
Nkosami bantwana Nkosami basitakele kakhulu ikakhulu ngana indlu le library.
Nkamazi Chief Kija says Eswatini will finally eliminate HIV. The Minister of Health says Eswatini will achieve the 2030 goal of an AIDS-free generation. For Eswatini TV News, I'm Kian Msibi, Nkamazi.
The Minister of Housing and Urban Development Under Secretary Kusile Dlamini says cities have a huge influence on the socio-economic development of the country. The U.S. was speaking during the commemoration of the World Cities Day held at the Mavuso Trade and Exhibition Center.
The commemoration of the World Cities Day marks the end of Urban October that was launched on the 2nd of that month to remind the world that everyone has the power and responsibility to shape the future of our cities and towns. The Minister of Housing, U.S. Kusile Dlamini, launched the celebration.
Our future is undoubtedly urban. Urbanization has been and will remain one of the most powerful mega threats of the 21st century. It should come as no surprise then that well-planned towns and cities will be central to our sustainable development.
UN Resident Coordinator's representative, Afshin Pasi, touched on the importance of attaining Sustainable Goal number 11.
Sustainable Development Goal 11, to make cities inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable, which is led by our sister UN agency, UN Habitat, identifies sustainable urbanization as one of the key priorities for global development.
Manzini Municipality Mayor Nozipo Kamedze affirmed their commitment into economic development of Eswatini.
Our vision is to reach 2030, which is our main goal, whereby we'll have all our infrastructures, our cities fully equipped with modernized equipment.
The day was themed Better Cities, Better Lives. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I'm Samkal Suekoza with Zikumbuzo Dlamini Manzini.
All government ministries will now have focal points for disability mainstreaming being supported in this endeavor by the United Nations Partnership Program for Persons with Disabilities. Speaking at Sibane Sami Hotel at Eswatini during the focal points and planners meeting, the Director of Social Welfare at the Deputy Prime Minister's Office, Kusile, says this will ensure people living with disabilities have easy access to government services.
The director says the training is mainly to ensure that the disability focal points fully understand the people they will be working with and know how to offer services to them. He says they are aware that people living with disabilities do not have enough employment opportunities, hence they are working with different stakeholders to equip them with skills.
Esithombele lesinaso etindzabeni tekucashwa kwabantu abakhubatile ukuthi vele emikhakheni leminyenti yemisebenzi basalela ngemva ngesizathu sekuthi bade labanye emakhono ekuthi bangasebenta kuleyo misebenzi leyo ledzinga emakhono latsite.
The project coordinator of the United Nations Partnership Project for Persons with Disabilities, Cindy Dube, says having people focus on issues of people living with disabilities in ministries will ensure effective service delivery and help draw attention to the implementation of their policies.
Lokuhlanganisa labo plana nema-focal points in the different ministries even kukhandzakale ukuthi kumqoka as part of affirmative actions onke emave vele aka UN member states baphocelelekile ukuthi kufanele abe khona ama-focal points so that kungabi ngathi ngibekise nje DPM's office lewenti disability.
The president of the Federation of People Living with Disabilities, Eswatini Bongani Magama, expressed faith in the value of mainstreaming disability in all aspects of government. He says the whole government approach will ensure people in this community fully benefit from all the policies.
Kuyi-exercise lenhle naletabalekelela abantu abakhubatekile ikakhulu etindzabeni tekubuka yona ibudget.
People living with disabilities make up 13% of Eswatini's population. For Eswatini TV News, Nelson Dlangamandla, Vuminkosi Nzenisa, Ezulwini.
Government says all views on ending gender-based violence are welcome as it has become a major disruption to socio-economic activities. Khumalo was reacting to a letter written and submitted by different organizations to the Prime Minister's Office and the Deputy Prime Minister's Office on the need for government to declare gender-based violence in the country a national emergency.
The organizations, which include Eswatini Action Group Against Abuse, the Coordinating Assembly of Non-Governmental Organizations and Gwaka Invoza, to mention a few, say declaring gender-based violence a national emergency will allow for more funding. The organizations say the funding of gender-based violence does not match the scale of abuse which a Maswati experience. They acknowledge the efforts by government and different stakeholders on ending gender-based violence, but say increasing the budget towards gender-based violence and fully implementing the 2023-2027 National Strategy to end gender-based violence in Eswatini and Costed Action Plan, amongst other things, can play a major role towards a gender-based violence-free Eswatini. Government spokesperson Alpheus Nxumalo says government is also concerned as gender-based violence is growing at an alarming rate. He says they will consult with the Deputy Prime Minister's Office on this matter and will respond accordingly to the contents of the organization's letter. A recent gruesome act of gender-based violence was the shooting and killing of 4 women at Goje Township at Ezulwini. For Eswatini TV News, Nelson Dlangamandla, Vuminkosi Nzenisa, and Bendulo Kumbi, Mbabane.
The Managing Director of Eswatini Bank, Nozizwe Mulela, urges financial institutions and companies to hire graduates. Now, Mulela was speaking when welcoming 5 graduates from different universities who will be attached to work in the bank. This is a partnership with the United Nations Development Program.
With the aim of reducing unemployment rate, especially amongst the youth, the Eswatini Bank, in partnership with UNDP under the Eswatini Youth Empowerment Program, has onboarded 5 graduate trainees on attachment of a period of 2 years. The Managing Director of Eswatini Bank, Nozizwe Mulela, urges companies to support this program and hire graduates.
Asibafake abantu bethu nabo batongena emsebenzini batawufundzela kusebenza nabente kahle ke vele seba guaranteed ukuthi umsebenzi bangaba nawo eSwatini Bank.
She says the young people have been placed in business units where they are developing critical skills. She says this program will also create future leaders and is a catalyst for economic development. Ross Sebatindira, the UNDP resident representative in Eswatini, says this is an important milestone towards job creation.
That is a significant milestone in the journey of the youth program, in the sense that it's really demand-driven by the bank. We've demonstrated that by offering these opportunities to the youth, you don't only give them hope, but you also give them.
Nonhlanhla Gama thanked on behalf of the graduates, saying they needed such. Being attached to companies will expose them to work ethics and they will gain skills and knowledge.
Sijabulile kakhulu njengama graduates ukuthi sithole ithuba leli kanjena ikakhulu ngoba abaningi bafuna abasha laveni labafisa ukuthola emathuba emsebenzi.
This program will go a long way towards job creation. For Eswatini TV News, I am Kiani Msibi with Patizo Msibi, Mbabane.
Let's take a look at international news. Ukraine said on Wednesday that Russia had shelled more than 100 settlements over the last 24 hours, more than any in a single day so far this year.
It's the most of any single day this year. Russia fired a barrage of shells across 118 settlements in 10 regions on Wednesday, according to Ukrainian authorities. Here in the southern city of Kherson, windows are shattered and civilians are distraught in the aftermath.
I was ironing at work and my relatives were home. It's a good thing they weren't on the balcony because they would have been killed. Large fragments smashed the windows. We live on the first floor. My daughter called me and I ran home.
Kherson was shelled 10 times on Tuesday. One woman was killed and 2 people were injured, according to the local military administration. Kyiv also reported a Russian attack on an oil refinery in Kremenchuk. Meanwhile, Russia's Ministry of Defense has released this footage of armed forces using high-precision missile weapons it claims are targeting Ukrainian military infrastructure. The intensified attacks come a day after the United Nations Human Rights Office said on Tuesday that it had reasonable grounds to conclude a missile strike that killed 59 people in October was launched by Russia. The incident happened in a cafe in the Ukrainian village of Hrotsna.
The report says that the Russian armed forces either failed to do everything feasible to verify that the target was a military objective, or deliberately targeted civilians or civilian objects, which in either event would be in violation of international humanitarian law.
The UN office has formally verified 9,900 civilians have been killed in Ukraine since Russia's February 2022 invasion, though the actual number is likely to be more.
Israel's ground troops were advancing towards Gaza City as diplomatic efforts intensified for at least a brief pause in the fighting in Gaza's deadliest war. United States President Joe Biden suggested a humanitarian pause, and Secretary of State Antony Blinken is expected back in the region on Friday. Now, Arab countries, including those allied with the United States and at peace with Israel, have expressed mounting unease with the war.
The sound of Israeli bombardments ring in the air as day breaks over Gaza. IDF forces and tanks on the ground in the enclave as the war against Hamas intensifies.
IDF fighters continue to advance in the Gaza City area and conduct face-to-face battles with Hamas terrorists and deepen the fighting.
Israel's army also released aerial footage of Wednesday's renewed strike on the Jabalia refugee camp, which it says targeted a Hamas commander. But residents dispel that claim and are calling on the international community to save them.
Palestinian children are being annihilated. Where's the whole world?
Save us. Children are dying. I swear, they're children. Those saying that there are Hamas leaders here, I swear there are no leaders. I swear to God, it's women and children who are dying here.
To be honest, it's a disaster that extends to the entire world. If countries around the world had even a modicum of shame, they wouldn't have allowed us to end up in this situation.
Israeli strikes on the Jabalia refugee camp, which began on Tuesday, are once again renewing calls for a ceasefire.
It's quite scandalous to see the inaction of the international community in the face of a catastrophe, of a humanitarian crisis of these dimensions.
As Israel expands its ground operation in Gaza, the diplomatic effort to get foreign nationals out and more aid into the enclave is intensifying. The U.S. Secretary of State is expected in the region on Friday, where he's likely to push for a pause in fighting.
As the war between Israel and Hamas grinds on, some in Israel says it's time for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to resign. Netanyahu has shied away from taking his responsibility for the surprise Hamas attack on October 7 that killed about 1,400 Israelis. The Prime Minister has also made it clear that he has no intention of stepping down.
Senior Israeli officials have taken responsibility for allowing the unprecedented Hamas incursion. Among them, the defense minister, the head of the Shin Bet security services, and former chief of staff Benny Gantz, who wasn't even a member of the government on October 7th. But one voice has been conspicuously silent, that of Israel's longest-serving prime minister, Benjamin Netanyahu.
Netanyahu's record in terms of assuming responsibility since the events of October 7th has been a tragedy certainly for Israel, but first and foremost for himself. Leaders are tested in such moments, and his test was the basic test of assumption of responsibility.
At one point, Netanyahu went even further, tweeting that his security chiefs had assured him that Israel had deterred Hamas and no attack was imminent. The comment seemed to put the blame on Israel's security forces for not warning him. A few hours later, he deleted the tweet after public outcry and apologized in another tweet. A recent poll found that 80% of Israelis believe the prime minister should take responsibility for what happened. The poll by the Israeli newspaper Ma'ariv also found that only 28% support Netanyahu as prime minister, as compared to 48% for National Unity Party leader Benny Gantz.
This will sooner or later end his career and also punctuate it. In other words, he's been with us as a national leader for just over a quarter of a century. In other words, since he succeeded Yitzhak Shamir as Likud's leader. And he's done many things and has had his fair share of successes and failures. All of them will be overshadowed by what happened on October 7th, 2023.
But Netanyahu himself says he has no intention of resigning. He is the only Israeli prime minister who has managed to stay in office despite being on trial in several corruption cases.
The only thing that I intend to have resign is Hamas. We're going to resign them to the dustbin of history. That's my goal, that's my responsibility, and that's what I'm leading the country to do.
Many Netanyahu loyalists from his Likud party say he will weather this storm too.
When you're in the public service, it is, you know that you will also receive criticism. This is totally obvious in everyday life, in everyday time. So you can imagine after such a tremendous, enormous, unprecedented disaster. So criticism is totally understandable. And now there is a war to handle, and there is especially a war to win. And therefore, I think that the prime minister will be judged at the end of the war.
Israeli officials say winning the war in Gaza could take months. By then, public opinion against Netanyahu may have shifted. Linda Gradstein, VOA News, Jerusalem.
Pakistan's northwestern border crossing was flooded with thousands of people looking to cross into Afghanistan on Thursday, now a day after the government's deadline expired for undocumented foreigners to leave or face expulsion.
The deadline for them to leave Pakistan has come and gone.
Security forces are detaining thousands of Afghans seeking refuge in the country and holding them in centres before they're deported.
We've started the operation and we're collecting people's data. Most of them had already voluntarily gone to Afghanistan and their houses were empty. We took 450 people into custody and will be taking more action. More than 13,000 people who have been identified are to be processed, and that's our phase 1.
Since Wednesday, holding centres have been filling up and many have been deploring poor conditions, including little to no access to water. Huge queues have also been forming at the border as thousands voluntarily make their way back to Afghanistan. But many of these Afghans have been living in Pakistan for decades and say they have nothing to go back to.
They've suddenly come up with the idea of expelling us. I've been living in Pakistan for 22 years. I was born here. I grew up here. I'm a tailor. I have my own shop. I'm doing well here. It's chaotic. They want us to leave. What are we going to do there? It will be very cold there. There will be no work there. What will we do there?
Pakistan is home to more than 4 million Afghan migrants and refugees. An estimated 600,000 of those poured into the country after the Taliban seized power in August 2021. The Pakistani government says the deportations are a way of protecting the country's, quote, welfare and security after a rise in attacks that it blames on Afghan militants. But human rights groups, including Amnesty International, have been urging Pakistan to reverse the decision, saying the country must meet its international legal obligations and put an end to the crackdown.
France, Britain hit by record winds of Storm Ciarán battered northern France with record winds of nearly 200 kilometers per hour, killing a lorry driver as the southern England remained on high alert on Thursday, and rail operators in several countries warned of that.
These are some of the strongest winds France has faced in a while, reaching up to 207 kilometers per hour. With maximum flood warnings in 2 French regions and disrupted train lines around the capital, Storm Ciarán is rocking the northwest of the country. The National Weather Agency placed 17 departments on the western coast of France on orange alert. In his radio address, the Transport Minister called for residents to be vigilant.
You should not take your car out. It is very important to stay at home and not take any risks. We can see how deadly the road can be in these conditions, and there are traffic bans on vehicles transporting heavy goods in the Brittany region.
Transport has also been affected, with several regional trains at a standstill in the northwest of France, and the 2 main airports of the region remain closed. Emergency services continue to urge residents to stay inside, warning that roads may be blocked by trees or other fallen objects.
What you should absolutely not do is be curious and go outside, nor should you call the firefighters if there's no imminent danger. Everything is dangerous. The wind is unpredictable. It can carry roofs, branches and other things.
Storm Ciarán has also reached the UK and Belgium, leaving other surrounding countries in northern Europe also bracing themselves.
Let's take a look at sports news. The Eswatini Q Sports Association has launched a 200,000 Malangeni tournament. Mundu Dlamini, who is the president of the association, says the tournament will help develop the sport in all levels. Dlamini was speaking during the launch of the tournament at the Ministry of Sports offices in Babane.
Eswatini Q Sports Association has officially launched what will be known as the Eswatini Q Sports Festival. The association is anticipating a sponsorship of around 200,000 Malangen that will cater for the prize money. Speaking during the media launch, the Q Sports president, Muntu Dlamini, says this festival will help the sports grow and also it will help with their bid to host the African Championships.
Q Sport sa imandate yethu develop the sport Q Sport Eswatini. Siphinde siyipromote kuwo onke ama levels. Le initiative le is meant to promote the black ball lesiyidlalako thina eSwatini. I hope you will note ukuthi ipool yethu inema courts lehlukene. Kunabo netball, kunabo handball leyato ngakuthi Chinese handball. Kwehlukahlukene nje but cishe thina in the region esiyisebenzisa ngile black ball. So the activity is meant to promote the black ball.
Other speakers included the Director of Sport in the Ministry, like Slonyan, and Sport Council, which both congratulated the association for such an event that has the potential to host the country's flag high. Babana Solos has 5 players called up for the national team, duty that will be playing in the 2026 World Cup qualifiers. The players include Sizolwethu Shabalala, Kwaketfala, Ayanda Kadlela, Newman Piliso, and Nelliso Dlamini. This has excited the head coach, Caleb Ngwenya, who has welcomed the increasing number of Solos players in the national team.
We are quite very happy this time around that we've added a quite number of players to the national team. It means the selectors of the national team saw something, and it's very good for the team.
Madeleine, on the other hand, has been playing well since the start of the season, where they are unbeaten in 6 games, but they have no players selected for the national team. The head coach, William Kamete, says he's not disappointed by this decision.
No, good disappointment. Ngicabanga ukuthi lesi-happy njengako lesicabanga nathi ukuthi kube fair ukuthi sikhone ukuthola i-player of the month last month.
The two teams played to a goalless draw in the MTN Premier League at Kalanga Sports Centre. Reporting for Eswatini TV Sports News, I am Patizwe Msibi. Kalanga, Stegi.
That's the end of our English news. Let's take a look at our weather focus. Go for a net break. We'll return with Patizwe Msibi to look at the sports fixtures for this upcoming weekend. Minutes after 7 kwalomhla siphinza sikwamukele ehlelweni kulesikhathi sanyalo-ke sitawuthi nje kubuka temidlalo naPhatizwe Msibi lo insatheli-ke yemsakato yetemidlalo lapha ekhaya. Asibusele Ndlondlo, welcome to the program. Sibona naliviki nalesibuya kulo sibona iMadlenya ihlangana neSwallows on what was an important game for Madlenya. Empeleni mina nje nakiwa kule game I was hoping ukuthi, I'm not saying I'm a Madlenya fan, but I was hoping they would capitalize on it ngoba bekubukeka kwi-game in hand, which it was. But it was a goalless draw. And I don't know what this means for Madlenya as a team. Yes, leqale kahle season, but if you look at history, some of these other teams, labaqhutselene nawo, Royal Leopards, Swallows, nabo Young Buffaloes, labalanzala ngephasi, should Madlenya be scared now? Good see, they had level with these teams, and we don't know what's going to transpire in the coming fixtures.
I think Madlenya I think Madlenya, they are doing what they are supposed to do because they are regarded as one of those small teams.
Yes.
So if ungakhona ukuthola ama-point nyalo early on in the season, uyathisita ukuthi beka ethubeni elihle ukuthi ungabi nje ungena kuma-relegation talks. Imadlenya Sfiso, their record has been impressive.
Yeah.
If you look at the first 4 games they played, they didn't lose any game, they didn't draw. They won straight 4s. And then the last 2 games they played against Rangers, they played to a draw. But Babuya go draw. If you look at the other games about Lalin, They won against Leopard, they won against Wanderers, they won against Babana Highlanders. Those are the big teams who are most likely to beat the other small teams. Look, if they avoid defeat, team lamanye in the league. So it's about right, because these big teams, if you avoid defeat against them, shortly there's something about you. And imagine I'd say Iswalo yaketch my chances. The score could have been 4-5-1 or 5-0. Because they were missing a clear-cut chances. More especially Felix, who was at the receiving end for every other ball that was getting into in the box for the Madeleine. So for Madeleine, this was a point won. But for Swallows, this was 2 points dropped. Looking at the chances they created, but for Madlenya, it's a beautiful result.
And you do trust them. I believe they're being feared now. They are the only team Lengaza so far.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Everyone of now would
yeah, yeah.
So yes, Madlenya, they are playing well. They are at the top of the table. Now everyone should say there's something about Yena. So I'm doubling my efforts so that's where the danger is life but up until now they've done all they can top of the table.
They will face Ilovo this coming weekend. Ilovo, that is, I don't know if it's doing fairly well or not.
It is.
Yeah, you'd
it's
say
a team coming from they were playing first division football last season.
Yeah.
Now Bafia Premier League, so clear position they're doing well.
Are you promising us, Kutsi, this could be a match to watch? Madlenya at the first position, Ilovo seventh position. But like you said, everyone is trying to remove you from the first position, probably give you Ilosiakwe Ekala. So we are anticipating a great match here.
We are anticipating a great match. For the fact that Ilovo, team Lengan, Madlenya team Lengan. So Madlenya, Ilovo will say, if I know what's one but mangibashaya confident yami itawuposteka nokuthi if ngishaya umuntu lo eventually singagcina sibanga naye le pass kungibeka kahle mina Ilovo they have shown ukuthi they can produce some results when they have to. Against Babana Highlanders they won, against Green Mamba they won Ilovo. So if you look at the other hand Madlenya nayo iwinile against the big team, so kutshela ukuthi this game is going to be a very, very difficult game for both teams, not just for Ilovo pen.
Hard for me to pick a game lengathi kutaba igame yemphela sonto lana phathizwe. Ngibona lo lamandla ngathi bangathi nje kuba team leba strong kakhulu kunalenye, but I'm looking at Green Mamba versus Wanderers. Green Mamba, I would predict a win for Green Mamba going into the weekend.
So the only big I'd say Kutsi has regarded that game as a big fixture.
Yeah.
Would be the names.
Yeah, yeah.
But based on recent results, it's a straight win for Green Mamba. But the football being football, and Manzini Wanderers can surprise you on their best days. It's going to be an exciting game because this game has always produced goals. This game has always produced entertaining results.
Royal Leopard versus Nsingizini Hotspurs. I'm picking that one because thina nawe sikile sahlala kanye savumelana ukuthi Nsingizini beyidlala kahle kuma tournaments. And akufuni ukuthi uyikhobose. Sibona ke nana Royal Leopards esingasho ukuthi iqala season kahle kakhulu. Having played 6 matches, they have won 4, lost 1 and drew 1. Are we in it for a treat for Minenja going into the weekend? I'd say if I'm paying money to watch a game, this is the game that I'm going to watch.
Yeah. For if you love beautiful football, beautiful display of football, because Royal Leopard they pass the ball now.
Sure,
they pass the ball well, and in Singizin they are getting there. But now those pattern of plays we are born lapana. So it's a game that very interesting for too many different reasons. Consistency in gingago ongthula amateam ukuthi sekake abenje in a consistent run akhona ukuthi adlale kahle Nsingizini more especially bayawina babuye badraw ama games longeke wa expect. So kule game lena nje you'll find ukuthi babuya nayo iwin.
Yeah, I want us to analyze kahle nama log standings now.
But before we analyze my log standing, there are very, very crucial games on Sunday. It's a yellow Sunday where Babana Highlanders idlala ne Monene Pirates. Monene Pirates still ayikase winner kule season, so they are looking for their first win against Mbabane Highlanders. Lenayo inaleyo inkinga ye-inconsistency, and then emva kwaleyo kudlala Mbabane Swallows neDenver lapha basemavuso ke laba ongithiwa i-double header bese kudlala yona iMbabane Swallows idlala nayo iDenver. Another game le expected ukuthi ibe mnandi sibili.
Let's go back to the log standings real quick. I know Madlenya is still flawless, having lost a single game. But here's an interesting, for me, what's interesting here is Green Mamba and Royal Leopards being on the chase. They are really there. If Madlenya sleeps this weekend against Ilovo, it could be a really big problem. Looking at particularly the fixtures that Green Mamba and Royal Leopards have going into the weekend. Ngabe, what would be your prediction? Fully prediction yakho ngokukhuluma ngayo ngemsombuluko naSibuya.
So I can see Madlenya winning against Ilovo. Looks like we might just come back to remain as they are. Yeah.
Okay.
It's surprised corner. Somehow I can sense things in winning against Royal Leopard. Yeah. So my changes are up. Well, those games we can see young performers climbing up the table. We can see Swallows and Mbabane Highlanders as well climbing up the table because, as I mentioned, Monene Pirates, if you can see their stats, they've lost 5 games, Fiso. 5 games, and now they are playing Mbabane Highlanders, who are picking up form at the right time. The signing of Pupu has changed some things for them.
Pupu, by the way, who you said, good position yake, should he be disciplined? I mean, he's the best player in the country.
He is. I still maintain that.
You still maintain that?
I'll always do. He is.
Interesting indeed. Hopefully we will see the results transpire as you've predicted, because if they don't, I would hold you to your words. Patizwe. Ngifuna siqhubeke si in the UK, particularly the Carabao, because I'm looking at what transpired kuleli viki. Carabao seyigcina mabomu September. Izoibuya nyalo njenge third round, but a lot of people are sad, particularly a lot of my colleagues, because if Arsenal wins, maybe Manchester loses, then Arsenal rejoices, but it seems like everyone just went through it.
Yeah, besides Chelsea fans,
but
then Chelsea fans these days same as Bournemouth fans. They are non-existent. So
okay,
no, but Manchester United, so they are. I think it's a down spiral. It's getting worse every day. They're losing 3-0 at home, mind you, at home against not the very best players from Newcastle Longabatfola in a serious league game. They lost 3-0 at home. Another 3-0 after losing against Manchester City. 3-0 at home again.
Are you as a Manchester fan? Because I think you are brave enough to admit that you're a Manchester fan.
Yes, I am.
You're one of those people that won't run away from admitting this simple truth and simple fact. What is the problem? Are we getting a solution anytime soon? I have another colleague in this very same production, Kusile, who this very same morning would say, I'll just say, hopefully,
since I'm not going anywhere, it's not looking pretty. It's not looking pretty. And Actembis, we were hoping to see the sale of the club, to see the Glazers. Change my fortunes, but it's not happening. So aside to sit but hopefully by the time back sorta, my friends in Manchester United all over the world. But again in West Ham, you couldn't win Arsenal by 3-0. Another surprising score. Liverpool Nunes, with that stand off a call to win the game for Liverpool against Bournemouth and Chelsea. Well, we don't say this much, but Chelsea won against Blackburn. Everton.
You don't have to be spicy about it.
Everton,
Chelsea won, that's it.
Yeah, and Fulham. So those are the teams like Kubegela go the next round of the Carabao Cup, which, by the way, was defended by Manchester United. They failed to do that.
When?
Last season. They are the current holders.
Oh, you're still talking last season?
No, I'm talking the defending champions of this tournament were knocked out
last season
by the runners-up of that tournament, who Manchester United beat last season.
Oh, the same Manchester United that's in shambles this year.
Yes.
In any tournament.
Yeah.
Okay, now it's going to be okay. I understand what you're going through.
No.
But let's talk about the quarterfinal. Obviously, it's coming on December 19, which is the most important date of the year. It's my birthday. It's going to be really, really, really important day. Everton is going to face Fulham. Port Vale is going to face Middlesbrough. Newcastle is going to face Newcastle. And then on December 20, Liverpool is going to face West Ham. It's just a fair prediction. Just looking at the results list, we are going Chelsea is going to come out dominant on this particular day.
You never know with Chelsea. You never know which Chelsea will come up today, how they will play. Because Chelsea can create so many chances just like they did against Brentford. But and the opponents just go there to score. But if I were to put my head on the block, I'll say we'll see a finals. If they don't meet anyway, we'll see a Chelsea versus Newcastle final. A Liverpool versus Newcastle final.
The last games, the English Premier League is October 29. Obviously, we saw, it's sad because I'm tired of talking about Manchester United losing, but it's becoming second nature. It's just the reality of the situation. But we saw Manchester United losing 3-0 in a massacre from Arsenal. Liverpool dominating Nottingham Forest. Aston Villa won against Luton. Three goals. But what's very important that I want us to look at are the fixtures. I want us to look at the weekend fixtures parties. Hopefully they will go up on the screen real soon. But what I do notice is that Manchester United is going to play Fulham. And I don't even know if we should be confident about Manchester, if we should be even excited. Is that a game that we should watch, first and foremost?
It's depressing watching Manchester United right now. It's depressing. And Fulham, so if they don't bring their A game, we'll come back Monday talking about how Manchester United suffered a humiliating defeat again. But there are a few quite interesting games over the coming weekend, more especially Newcastle versus Arsenal. That's another interesting feature.
But maybe even before we go there, I do want us to put some focus on Manchester United.
No, but
there can be some positive things that we can... No. Last head-to-head, let's say it's just last 5 games against Fulham. Manchester United has won 4 and they drew once. Manchester United has been flawless against Fulham. They've been playing really good football. I know you said it's depressing watching them, but does that at least give you a bit of confidence going against a 14th seeded team in the log standings?
It doesn't matter, so we lost against Crystal Palace at some point. So Manchester ubona ngayo this season, and I'd say there's nothing to look out for.
Okay.
When you're talking about Manchester, so ubona ngayo, okay, now they decided to play. They want to win, and if Manchester United is going to win this game, probably just a 1-goal machine.
Yeah, and I don't think it's something to celebrate. Really.
No, not at this time.
There's nothing you can celebrate as Manchester this season, except let's look at other teams that are worth talking about, parties where you didn't want to talk about Manchester United, justifiably so. West Ham United versus Brentford. I'm so sorry I'm doing this to you, but I'm really enjoying this moment. Brentford versus West Ham tomorrow, 5 p.m. An important game. Brentford is given a 46% winning probability against West Ham, which is interesting to me because these are teams that Lanzelana Gokma log standings, number 9 and number 10. I would say it's almost a 50-50 and how they've been playing.
No. Exactly how they've been playing that Brentford has a better statistic. Remember, Brentford, Chelsea. Because on paper, Chelsea, it's still regarded as a team that a top 6 team on paper. So the stats very
Is it really just paper if they've gone in other tournaments and won where other top 6 teams that are regarded on paper lost? Making an example of Carabao Cup. But I don't know. Let's keep going up. Brentford versus West Ham.
We'll keep going, because if you look at who they were playing against, a championship team, so we'll understand. We expect them to win anyways. But then again, the fixtures are Kubeka. And another game, so when Kulumanga Newcastle versus Arsenal. Arsenal, they are still going for a top position because this season they are very much convinced that they'll win the league. They are going for the league this season.
I'm rooting for them myself as a Chelsea fan.
Well,
No, they're looking really good. They're looking really good.
Yeah, but Spurs is looking good as well. Have you watched Spurs?
I've seen Spurs.
They are looking good.
They are flawless.
Proper good.
They are flawless. But
and the nice thing
for
is,
me, it's character.
They are playing Chelsea on Monday.
No, I think we're talking about Arsenal, Patizwe. Let's not divert.
No, I'm
we're
just
talking
saying,
about Arsenal. Arsenal has been flawless, but Spurs doesn't have the same test of character that Arsenal has, particularly if we also look at the vengeance that Arsenal will have last season when they ran. They are coming in hot.
Yeah, so Arsenal this season, they will compete again.
Yeah,
they will compete
certainly.
again. They look good. Labadlali ngendlela responda ngayo maba loser. It's quite impressive.
Yeah,
it's quite impressive. And the way Arteta has managed to have a cover for every other position. Look, Jesus is away.
Yeah.
But Ngaita came in and scored a hat-trick in the past game.
I think we should make a disclaimer. Every time we say Jesus, we should make that disclaimer that we're talking about an Arsenal player. Jesus. But yeah, Jesus, we should call him Jesus.
Yeah, no blasphemy intended.
Yeah,
it's just the Brazilian Gabriel.
Yeah.
Hello. He's got an angel names as well. Angel Gabriel.
He's anointed.
No. Yeah, so if you look there at the standings, Fisa, we are going to see probably, I'd say it's taking shape for a top 4 for this season. Because all these teams like top 4 right now, they can actually challenge for a league. All 4 of them. But then season saying injuries
yeah, but I think it's justified if we look at the fact that it's 10 matches that have been played.
Yeah.
And they normally say, let's just wait for 10 games and then we can start having conversations around
now we have 10 games.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.
And by December, we'll know who's the champion.
Yeah.
But we can't conclude number, because normally, or in previous history told us, if we get December, number 1, you're most likely to win the league. Unless you Arsenal, then we cannot help you. We cannot help you on that one. But then again, the others have shown all the way.
I think for December, the separator then becomes, we look at the margins in the points difference. What we saw with Arsenal was, I think, for a lot of fans, even Arsenal fans, except the delusional ones, of course, but Arsenal fans knew that, it's either or right now. It's looking good that we're still position 1, but looking at the point difference, Manchester City is right behind us. And it's Manchester City.
And there was a time where they were 8 points behind. So if you're 8 points...
But in December, they were not 8 points behind.
But they were in front, Arsenal. So it was just a matter of keep winning your games.
Yeah.
But then they couldn't do that because if you look at the Arsenal squad, they have young players who they depend on so much, the likes of Bosaka, Martinelli.
Yeah.
Those are Odegaard.
Brilliant.
Those are the players who do not have that winning experience. They do not know how to win a trophy, like a big trophy.
Yeah.
They can win your Carabao. Even Manchester is winning Carabao. They're winning a FA Cup. Even Chelsea.
Just like Ronaldo and Messi, at some
winning.
point they didn't have any trophy, but they showed that character.
But they had players who won them the games, who won them the leagues until they get used into it.
You feel like that veteran leadership or kind of experience.
They had Bo Puyol when Benfica. They had Bo Ronaldinho when Bo Messi.
I hear that argument.
Bo Ronaldo had Bo Ruud van Nistelrooy when they were coming up.
Fair assessment.
Yeah.
Just quickly, Patizo, Manchester City is going to play Chelsea on Sunday. Here's the Manchester
City. Spurs is playing Chelsea on Monday.
Oh, yes.
Manchester City is playing, I think it's Bournemouth.
I'm on November 12th. I'm way ahead.
You're way ahead.
I'm concerned about Manchester City at the 3rd position because you are so confident that Arsenal is cruising. Yes, it is, and that's without a doubt, but we don't want to count Manchester City out.
You never count Manchester City out. They've dominated the Premier League. It's like...
Yes. So, after this weekend, what are the log standings looking like predictably?
So I think for this weekend, unless Chelsea pull something out of the rabbit head, pull a rabbit out of their head, because they're playing Spurs. It's a London derby.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll see a better.
That's the big game. But I see that game. But for me, Chelsea, like you're saying, rabbit out the head. It's magic. I'm not even putting much focus on that game. I'm putting focus on Arsenal and Man City's games because those are really defining games. I mean, Spurs might just win against Chelsea.
Or we might just see in Manchester City going top.
That's the conversation that I wanted us to have.
Yeah, we might just see
Manchester City. That's the biggest possibility going into this week.
Yeah, because if Arsenal drop any point against Newcastle, and they are playing away, mind you.
Yeah.
So it's most likely that they can drop their points. But Spurs, because they are playing at home, They are playing at home space, so they might just beat Chelsea. If that doesn't change, we might just see City move to second, or if Spurs lose, they are dropping.
Yeah.
It's a big possibility.
We only have a minute left. I wanted us to talk briefly about La Liga. I don't know if we can, but maybe we could just go straight into the weekend fixtures for La Liga. Interesting games. Atletico Madrid is facing Las Palmas. But I'm interested in Barcelona and Real Madrid as well as Girona. You don't want to count out Girona. I think Master highlighted, Kutsi, we should really look out for this team. They are the second seed on the log standings, which is the game for the weekend.
Yeah. So, you know what's fun about Girona? The parent club that owns Manchester City, they also own shares, some shares go Manchester, go
So
Girona.
you think the winning is in the
And
DNA?
part of the owners in that team, Pep Guardiola. So there is that link.
There's
between,
that family winning DNA going
Yeah,
in there. But
it-
Real Madrid
yeah.
still at the top of the log standings. We do see Girona number 2, FC
And
Barcelona.
they're surprised.
Going into the weekend, we might come back at the same fixture.
We might. Madrid is City like Barcelona because that's one team they're competing against.
Patizo, thank you so much for your time. Kwalo muhla sikuvalelisa sidabe singena esibayeni kuze matfute uqhubeke uvula umsakazo wethu itfombe usale kahle.